Hello around the world. Welcome to our first webinar today, the first webinar of LGT Venture Philanthropy's 5th birthday. The webinar will be about insights from LGT Venture Philanthropy's portfolio organizations. We have the pleasure to have with us today Reese Fernandez, the founder and CEO of Rags to Riches, and Sandeep, the founder and the CEO of Operation Asha, as well as two team members from LGT Venture Philanthropy, Joan from Manila, who is responsible for LGT Venture Philanthropy operations in Southeast Asia, and Inder Prijavla from India, who is responsible for the Indian operations. The next hour or so, we'll have a brief introduction to the two social enterprises which LGT Venture Philanthropy is supporting over the last couple of years already, as well as a brief introduction into our work in Southeast Asia and India. And then we're going to start with a few initial questions, and then we will open the floor for all of the questions which we've received from many of you right now listening. Without further ado, I'd like to start with an introduction by Reese Fernandez of Rags to Riches. Reese, are you ready?
Yes. So everyone, good evening or good morning, depending on where you are. I'm Reese Fernandez Ruiz from Rags to Riches, and it is my pleasure to share with you our story today. Ten years ago, there was a very big garbage dump site in the Philippines called Payatas. It has the size of around 40 football fields, and together with 500,000 people living in this garbage dump site, there lived a woman named Ming. She's actually the one in the picture. Loving mother to 5 children and a loving wife. Her husband receives temporary jobs here and there, and her children are still very young. Even if the family lives with below $2 a day, she was determined to make her life better. She would scavenge for other people's trash in order to secure her future. She was scavenging in the garbage dump site. She found fabric remnants discarded by garments manufacturers around the city. She created woven foot rugs out of them and sell these in the streets and earn some cents to get by. Soon, her neighbors followed, and Payatas became the rug weaving capital of the Philippines. Because rug weavers became modestly profitable, a group of unscrupulous middlemen came in. And middlemen thought of earning through the rugs as well, so what they did is that they purchased the fabric remnants directly from the factories, and Ming and her neighbors could no longer get the remnants for free. They had to buy them off several middlemen, earning their own profit. And to top it off, she does not also have the access to the market and can only sell in the streets. She would sell to another set of middlemen who would then sell the rugs to the market. So at the end of the day, she earned 2 cents per rug, or around 8 cents per day. And it's scandalous how someone who works so hard could get so little. And this problem is actually rampant all over the country. Rags to Riches' mission is to provide opportunities for these artisans to get out of poverty. Let's tell you more about how we do this. First, we get fabric remnants straight from garments factories to give these to our artisans so they could make beautiful hand-woven products mostly from their homes. They also have their centers in their community so that they could submit their work there and at the same time still be able to work from home and take care of their children. We have also partnered with the Philippines' top designers to give this direction to the products. We would then buy the art creations for a fair marketplace, and we sell to top stores with clients who can appreciate style and substance. Aside from providing artisans the access to the supplies of fabric remnants, access to the market, Rags to Riches also created programs for design development, trainings, and savings. So we now have over 550 artisans trained, and we're creating fashion and home masterpieces that are in the hands and homes of the Philippines' most prominent personalities.
Thanks a lot, Reese.
Over and beyond a fashion and home brand. Sorry?
Okay, no, I thought you were already done. Sorry.
Okay.
Can you please?
So, okay, but over and beyond fashion and home brand, Rags to Riches is a bringer of opportunities for the hopeful artisans of the Philippines. Most of them have never seen high-end shops for Rags to Riches, but now they confidently walk in them and beam with pride as they see the work of their hands on luxurious shops. Most of them have never worked with the more privileged people in the country before, but now talk to top designers, exchange ideas with them, and even politely disagree sometimes. And for us, that is empowerment. Some of them worry about dinner or tomorrow's breakfast or the storm that is coming in this week, but their dreams are bigger, brighter, and more long-term. So for us, Rags to Riches is not just a fashion and home brand, it's a solution, a platform for dedicated artisans to hone their skills and get out of poverty through great design. So it's a platform for designers to design the seemingly mundane, and we still use fabric scraps that came from factories and turn them into masterpieces. It is a platform for businesses to create value in their company, in the country, and eventually in the world. It's proof of concept for the world that it is possible to develop by doing good.
Thank you, Reese, for this brief introduction into Rags to Riches. You'll all have plenty of time later on to ask Reese all the questions that you always wanted to ask her. But before that, we'd like to get a brief introduction to Operation Asha by Sandeep. Sandeep, hello and welcome.
Hi, thank you, Wolfgang, and welcome to all the listeners. Operation Asha is to eradicate TB worldwide and support the Millennium Development Goal of eliminating TB as a public health issue by 2050. To come back, what is tuberculosis? In the West, it was normally thought that tuberculosis has been eliminated. That was a great thing. Unfortunately, it is coming back with a vengeance. Tuberculosis is a bacterial infection. 1/3 of the global population, mainly in developing countries, is infected with it. Fortunately, that does not mean they have the disease. Only about 1% of them would ever develop an active disease in their lifetime. In spite of that, it continues one of the biggest killers in developing countries, and is not just a health issue but a severe socio-economic problem. In India alone, $20 billion is the indirect loss to the economy because of tuberculosis. Patients lose another $300 million in wages, and these are people who are living much below the poverty line, people who are earning $1 or even 20 cents a day. Imagine what a tremendous loss for those people to be losing $300 million. Bad enough. But now, because of poor treatment and poor adherence to treatment, the bacteria is becoming resistant to the first line of drugs. I'm sure many of you must have heard or read about the dreaded drug-resistant TB in newspapers and in the media. According to an estimate by the World Health Organization, MDR could infect more than 2 million people by 2015 and cause hundreds of thousands of deaths. It's like the plague coming back. Now, what has Operation Asha done? So why did it start work and made a separate organization, a separate NGO rather than working with others? What we did was we brought together the best practices which other NGOs are following, and then made a very rigorous evaluation of them, applied them to a model, and kept on improving. So what we've done is we go to a slum or village, and we locate a center there in partnership with a local entrepreneur. We have to open our own premises. We do not buy or rent our own premises. This person has been working in the community for years and years, and so has trust of the community. Then we get a local person to supervise this shopkeeper or this businessman who is doing some other business. The person who is hired full-time is known as a counselor. The counselor knows the same language, belongs to the same community, and therefore has the trust of the community. He goes around, talks to people, and doesn't even mention tuberculosis. He just goes and says, hey, you've been losing weight. Now, losing weight is a sure sign of tuberculosis. He just says, hey, you've been losing weight. Why? Let me take you to a government hospital and get you tested. He doesn't mention TB because TB carries a terrible stigma. Then he takes him to the hospital, gets him tested, and if he tests positive, then he will slowly break the news, hey, unfortunately, you're suffering from TB. But don't worry, I'll get you treated. And the patient doesn't believe, the patient is taken to another patient who was treated earlier. So peer counseling is done. We use public health facilities for testing, diagnostics, as well as for get prescription for patients. And we also take free medication from the government. This ensures a very low cost and a very high social return on investment. Last year, from LGT Venture Philanthropy diligence on the TB space in India, we came up with a very interesting and honestly pleasantly surprising result that Operation Asha's cost per patient is 19 times, believe me, 19 times less than the second nearest competitor. So Operation Asha can deliver services and medication and treatment to a patient at a cost which is 19 times less than any other organization, which is also using the same government facilities which Operation Asha is. In addition to this, Operation Asha has converted its model into a replicable, scalable system. Each group of about 10 to 20 centers is clubbed under a program manager, who's again a full-time employee. This system becomes replicated from city to city, from village, from a group of villages to another group of villages. I think to ensure very high quality, one is bring in technology which existed in various ways when we started work, but was not being used in an effective manner. This technology does that every patient is enrolled with her or fingerprints. And every time the patient has to come for taking the medication, will be 60 times over 6 months, the patient has to give the fingerprint. And the patient misses the dose, the system sends a text message to the patient, to the counselor, and to the supervisors, and the patient is brought back into the system. This ensured very high quality. Honestly, quality which just about hasn't been achieved by anyone else. As a matter of fact, about 4 years ago, we were asked whether our figures were proper and correct. What we're achieving had never been achieved earlier. So we invited a poverty lab from MIT US to do an evaluation of our work. And the moment we did that, everyone agreed that our data must be correct, that we have the courage and the boldness to bring in independent agency. So I would say we started small. From there, we've become one of the largest providers of TB treatment in the world and deliver very high impact at a very low cost. Thank you, and I hope I'll be able to answer the questions later.
Thanks a lot, Sandeep. Like always, it was a pleasure listening to your great achievements over the last few years. Before we go into the questions, we'd just like to give a very brief intro to LGT Venture Philanthropy for the ones of you who haven't heard that much about us, especially the two regions where we've just heard Riches and Operation Asha to be very active in. Maybe before we go into Southeast Asia and India, on a global scale, LGT Venture Philanthropy as a team has grown to 23 people for the last 5 years. All of us, our team colleagues in Latin America, our team colleagues in Africa, in China, in Southeast Asia, in India, and also here in Europe, we all try to increase quality of life of less advantaged people by investing in young, strongly growing organizations that benefit less advantaged people. Organizations like Rags to Riches, like Operation Asha. At the moment with 27 active engagements we're all trying to improve the quality of life of less advantaged people. But I'd like to get a little bit closer to Southeast Asia and India, and I would ask Joanne to give a very brief intro into our activities in Southeast Asia. Joanne, are you there? If it's not at the moment, maybe Inderpreet can start providing us an overview of activities in India. Inderpreet.
Hello everyone, this is Inderpreet. I'm a part of the LGT VP India team based in Delhi. In India manages a portfolio of 6 organizations currently, which are for-profit and 3 are non-profit organizations, including Operation Asha. Broadly, these fall in the sectors of agriculture, renewable energy, waste management, such as TB, health issues such as TB, for instance, and of course education. LGT has been operating in India since 2009, and we continue to make investments in these areas. Moving forward again, our focus will continue again looking at game-changing models, both non-profit and for-profit models, which solve the critical social or environmental issues in India. I have with me in India 2 other team members who are based in Bangalore and Mumbai respectively, and we cover the entire country together.
Slot Inderpreet, I don't know if John is with us again. John? But I'm going to summarize very briefly our activities in Southeast Asia. I mean, pretty similar to India, we started in Southeast Asia already in 2008. Rags to Riches being our first investment in Southeast Asia. Over the last couple of years, we added another 7 organizations to our portfolio in Southeast Asia, from organic fertilizer, organic tea, through things around autistic education for children in Vietnam, a whole variety of social and environmental topics which we try to cover in Southeast Asia. What's special about the Southeast Asian regions, at least for our activities, is that over the last couple of years we had to recognize that the number of larger organizations which are up for scaling is very limited. Therefore, we decided to get into earlier stage organizations which benefit less advantaged people, especially in countries like Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, and the Philippines. And we created an accelerator program there to basically build the pipeline for impact investments in the future. But as today, I think we have the unique chance to listen to Sandeep and to Reese. I'd like to continue the webinar with the first question before we get into a more interactive part. I think one of the interesting questions, and a few people that have sent in questions beforehand have come up with a similar question. Qualities a social entrepreneur, a high-quality social entrepreneur, is looking for in a good investor. Maybe Sandeep, you would want to give us a few first points what you're looking for when you discuss with new potential investors in Operation Asha. What are the key things that you're looking forward to find in people which support you?
Sure, that's a critical question. The first thing, Wolfgang, is always, what is the philosophy of the funder, of the donor, of the investor? Are they ethical? Will they stand with us for a long time, and we will not have to do ourselves because we dealt with someone who's not good enough? I mean, it might look terrible on my part to say that we do not trust everyone who wants to fund us. But friends, believe me, it's not an easy choice. Without naming, I'll tell you, we have had a donor to us for hours and hours over, I would say 20-30 hours over a few months. And then they came down and visited our centers and talked to us. And we started feeling uncomfortable. And believe me, when we started looking at history, we found things were honestly not acceptable. If this happens, most unfortunate. And whereas the donor was willing to put us as one of the top organizations they had researched during the year, we withdrew from the due diligence. The first thing we definitely look at is that what the donor, what do they look like? What have they done in the past? What kind of organizations they've supported? That's the first thing. And once that happens, the next is that is a donor looking for high impact? And I say that's a big thing. If you are creating an impact which gives 10% social return, well, are you really doing anything in society? Are you really changing the society? So we're looking for donors, for investors who are looking for high impact at a low cost. Next is the donor and Operation Asha. Actually in a partnership. They are in a relationship where the common philosophy that we are helping the poor, they're helping those who need us, who need some services, and it should be a partnership based on a true, transparent, long-term relationship. Wolfgang, I could go on.
Maybe we take a few points of Reese. Reese, what is it that you normally look for in the investors? I mean, you're based in Manila, you're active in the Philippines. Is there a difference to what Sandeep was mentioning, is there additional points that are important when you start the discussions with investors? What is your experience?
Thank you, Wolfgang, and thank you, Sandeep. Actually, there are lots of things, lots of points that Sandeep was able to mention that resonate so much with ours. So I agree with all of the points, and I guess I'm just going to add more to that. To add 3 points. So first, it is very important for us that our investor understands the culture and context of our organization, because different countries all over the world will have different nuances. And it's very important that the investor can understand completely what's happening, or at least is very open to understand that something that might work in a Western country or somewhere else may not work for a particular country. And that is very, very important. The second one, because our organization intrinsically looks for positive impact in what we do, that is very helpful if investors also look for positive impact in an organization and can also provide insights and inputs on how to measure impact. It's important for us to exchange ideas and reach a point where we all be satisfied with the information that we have so that we could move forward in enriching our cause. And the third is we realize, as Sandeep mentioned, that investors are really partners in change, partners in building a better world. We want to also reach out to more partners out there, and it will be great and it's very valuable that investors can also connect us to potential partners who can be part of our advocacy and part of what we do as a social enterprise as well.
Very interesting. Sandeep, if there are points that you would want to add because they're really key for you when you look at new investors, or was most of the important things mentioned by Reese already and by yourself before? Sandeep?
I'll definitely add one more point, and that is about reporting requirements. Donors who ask for too little, there are donors who ask for too much. What donors have to understand on this side is that if they ask for too much information, they would be busy or making reports. I would give you an example again without naming the donor. But after dealing with them for about 3 years, what we were doing was spending about 50% of the donation amount into just giving feedback. And honestly, we got sick and finally discussed with them and, ultimately had to say, well, terribly sorry. We don't think that 50% of the donation should go into reporting to you if you're not willing, if you don't agree to change your reporting requirements. I think we should part company. Again, it comes back to a partnership where you have to talk to each other, understand each other, and put every dollar to great impact, not to paperwork. I would say that's the final point.
Okay, maybe we'll come back to this discussion a little bit later on, but maybe it would be interesting for a second to listen to the other side meaning investors, to Joanne and to Sandeep. What are you looking for in an investee when you start your discussions with new potential engagements? Joanne, whoever wants to start can go ahead. Great, Joanne.
Sure, thanks very much. So the question was asked, and Joanne beat me in providing these responses. And as responses that I felt, wow, this is basically covered things. What more can I add? So then I thought, what the listeners might benefit from is a slightly different perspective on these questions. It's different than maybe what Joanne has captured in very concrete terms. I think the one thing that perhaps I look for as an investment manager in a potential investee organization or people or founders or promoters is the integrity and authenticity. I mean, I think it may seem rather straightforward, but what I felt over the last few years was that in the end, this work over time gets extremely challenging. All the PR and all the nice things that are being said about social entrepreneurs and impact investing, etc. There are a lot of challenges that come the way, and for me, I think these two qualities will make sure that the people who we are working with have a good head on their shoulders and will continue to wade through those challenges that may come out of those. So that's why integrity and authenticity are extremely important. On number 2 point, what I like to think is that we are in the I would say in the business of problem solving, and it depends what kind of problems we choose to solve. And when we look at our investee potential in the organization, that kind of approach that we take as to what problem is the investee organization solving. What's the systemic context of that problem? What are the other entities or factors at play which are affecting that problem? What other solutions? How effective are those? In that systemic context, how effective is this investee's solution, and how efficacious and how it is implemented, and how scalable can it be? So it's as part of that discussion and that battle is what I would call we try to develop a common ground, which I think again extremely important. Common as in have a common understanding of a long-term vision of what this organization is all about and what this organization is going to be all about in terms of which problem is it solving. The third and the last point, I think in this perhaps would be for me the investees willing to work together. I think many times, as the sector is evolving, more and more people are starting to find that maybe there are softer sources of capital that they can tap into through this impact investing space, if you will. And if the one and the number 2 points are there, then of course that willingness to work together over the long term has to be there, and that willingness to be able to away and go with us and see challenges that the organization faces on an ongoing basis, and then coming back and openly discussing those challenges with us. It is all of that willingness to work together. I think some points Joanne would probably go into much more concretely.
Thanks a lot, Inderpreet, and hello to all. I'm Joanne. I'm the investment manager for Southeast Asia, and I work with Reese and our other portfolio organizations here in Southeast Asia. I think a lot of the things that it mentioned are indeed very important. Integrity and authenticity also ties into sense of openness and a sense of mutual trust with the organizations. I think that over the course of a working relationship with an investee, many problems can come up. And at least from how we approach it, we to be the partner of the organization when these difficulties arise, whether it's needing to hire new people, sales didn't meet targets, many things that come up as you're trying to build a business, and particularly such a challenging thing as a social enterprise. And the ability to bond with one another, and it goes both ways, is very important because otherwise, if there's no trust between the two parties, difficult to get to the bottom of an issue and really work constructively towards solving it. I think what I would add to what Inderpreet's mentioned is what I do look for more and more now with the entities that we work with is self-awareness. I think the ability to identify and acknowledge we can improve. I think the industry, the sector, is one where, and rightly so, we try to celebrate people who have achieved a lot, who are doing good for society. But sometimes I think also we do it too much or too prematurely, and it sometimes causes people to not be aware of where they can still improve, or where they might need additional support or resources. And so humility and also just always wanting to improve and seeing, okay, if I need to improve this system and process, hire this person. And that also ties into then being more open as well to feedback that investors might sometimes have about an organization and what needs to be improved. I think maybe a couple last points. It's important that you find it fun to work with each other. So, as serious and as tough as things can be, indeed, if you share the goals and if you get along, that helps. Yeah, I think I'll stop there, and Wolfgang get on to the next point.
Thanks a lot, Joanne. I think the last question which we have prepared before we go into the questions that they sent us, and thanks a lot for this, around insights for scaling up. I think I would hand over to Sandeep and ask him to give us his thoughts on what is the essentials or the learnings that he made around scaling up a successful organization.
Scaling up, I would say, is the biggest challenge. And I want to do that. Even before attempting it, one has to stand back and look at one's operations and do a few critical activities. Us, the three very essential ingredients have been: the first thing, to declutter activities, to break them down to simple points. Basically, even illiterate or semi-literate people will be able to understand. If you want to pull into the wall, well, hold the nail like this. Hit with a hammer. Bring it down to wise activities. Don't say, just head and hit the nail with a hammer. It may not work. That's what we've learned. More so, the manpower we are using is basically semi-literate. The youths, girls and boys from disadvantaged areas, from the slums and from the villages, who can barely read and write their own names and addresses. So it has been very important to lay down specific points. You do one, then you do two, then you do three, not putting them together. And then, of course, having a very intensive training program. And then that you test the knowledge. in field, in classroom, and only then you send them out in field. And again, continuously retrain them back, analyze their performance. So, for example, those who deliver less than 50% of the total detections, than 50% of the average, are brought back immediately for a refresher course in order to improve their skills. That overall improves the program at very little additional cost. And then the final thing is strong headquarters. It seems undemocratic that the headquarters be powerful. The fact remains, if you do not have good standard operating procedures, if you do not have good accounting, if you do not have good HR policies, you won't be able to scale up. You might do it, might survive for 6 months, a year, 2 years, but a poor headquarter, poor policies, poor SOPs are a sure recipe for collapse. So do not underestimate practices at the headquarter level. Know that everything is in place to support the field formations. Of course, the work is done by the field formations, so they are important. But as important is the planning you put into a building. So these are 3 essential ingredients.
Thanks a lot, Sandeep. I mean, Reese, you've been growing your organization quite a bit over the last few years as well. What is your main learnings, experience out of working very hard at scaling Rex to riches?
Thank you much, Wolfgang. As a company that provides secure livelihood opportunities to artisans from poor communities, we actually recognize that our scale-up must be for communities and for the market as well. And we have identified 3 important points that we've established, but we're still currently also building up. So the first one is through establishing sustainable partnerships with key ethical, fashion, home retailers in the Philippines and key cities around the world. As we develop our communities, we have to make sure that there's a secure livelihood waiting for them. And if you don't mind, I'll take this opportunity as well to invite our listeners to visit our website. It's www.rags2riches.ph. That's with the number 2. And other products, if you're a retailer or somebody who's interested in being an agent for an eco-ethical brand, then you're more than welcome to join us. The second element is building community-based artisan groups who can create art-to-art products of high value and high quality. So this through continuously training our current artisans and new artisans to create these products together with our top designers. And third one, and it's very important, it may be the part that's less design-driven, but at the same time it's very, very important, is to streamline supply chains. We have to ensure that our supply of raw materials, including scrap cloth or organic cloth or other indigenous materials, is secure, and establish a strong and reliable in-house production and finishing. So we have to understand that our model is quite decentralized, but have to also maintain a part of our supply chain as decentralized, something that we can control. And we do this through having our in-house workshop. Those 3 points, basically.
Thank you, Reese. I mean, how does that look like from the perspective of investor? And Joanne, what are your learnings over the last five years when you think about scaling organizations?
Sure. Thanks a lot, Wolfgang. I think when I think about what it takes for social enterprises to scale up, a lot of it has been said anyhow by Reese and Sandeep. I think one is systems and processes. So as a company grows, right, you have to manualize all of that and just make it easy to replicate or to pass on from group to group. I think one thing which kind of was mentioned and what we see as investors is that when we come in, it's already ready to scale. But what we find is really that often there's still a learning curve. There is still, 1 to 2 years more where you need to work with the organization, help them figure out the business model to really get to scale. And that can be a painful process, but as that becomes clearer and as it works itself out, then it's very important to have the systems and processes. I think the second thing is that management information becomes like key as the organization grows, which is why Operation Asha is pursuing biometrics, which is why Rags to Riches just worked out a partnership with NetSuite so that they could have an ERP system. And it's unavoidable as you grow that you need to keep track of all this data, and that's definitely a key to scaling. And finally, from an investor standpoint, as much as we want to be able to provide all the support to organizations financially, networks-wise, everything, one investor alone can't do that, and therefore it is very important to open doors to other partners, to other investors, to other people who can help organizations scale. So I would say it's those things: figure out the model, build the systems and processes, keep information, and leave it open for more partners.
Well, thanks a lot, Joan. I'd like to use the last 15 minutes of this webinar to answer a few of your questions. And maybe before we do this, I'd like to just point out that you can have this recorded webinar afterwards. You'll find it or we'll send it to you. And the same is true for the presentation. So don't be afraid if not every single bullet point of the slides was covered. We're going to send it to you afterwards. And just for the ones of you who are interested, we're going to have another 4 webinars today. The next one, which is going to start pretty soon, is around us providing more than just the money, but also a lot of management know-how. It's quite a few of you might be aware with a program called ICATS, Impact Catalysts, where we send business professionals to our portfolio organizations. And in this webinar, we're going to hear a few of them. And we're going to hear again the opinion of a social entrepreneur, what they think about such programs, what they think about interest providing more than just the money. Then I think around 1 p.m. there is a very interesting webinar together with our board, including His Highness Prince Max from Liechtenstein, who was the initiator of LGT Venture Philanthropy and is very close to our work. He's going to give us a few of his insights into the last 5 years. We have a few more board members who are also going to talk about what they learned, what they see as the challenges in this space. In the later afternoon European time, 3:30 p.m., we're going to listen to leaders in this world who have visions for a more positive world, or as we call it, a smiling world. And they're going to let us know what they think is the world that investors should try to create over the next 10, 15, 20 years. They see things to evolve in the future. And last but not least, 5:30 p.m. European time tonight, we have a very interesting webinar around impact investing. What are the latest trends? What is an outlook impact investing with especially people who are very prominent in this space. Most of you might know the Gin Network. We'll have the CEO of the Gin Network with us, and also the Andy Network. We're going to have Randall with us as well. They're going to provide an outlook. But before you can enjoy these webinars over the day, we'd like to answer a few of the questions which you sent in. and I will also open up the chat in a second. So if you have additional questions which have come up over the last 45 minutes, please type them in, and if we have the time, we're going to try to answer them. From the questions, the many questions that you sent in, I had to choose a few, and I think I'd like to start with a question which sounds like what proved most beneficial or on the contrary detrimental their relationship with investors. And I think this is a question which goes to the social entrepreneurs, asking them what's proven beneficial to your social entrepreneurs or not so beneficial in your relationship with the investors, in your relationship with LGT Venture Philanthropy, in relationship to other investors. Any specific things that you think have been very beneficial for you, or on the contrary? I think we touched upon a few of them, but maybe there's a few more. Sandeep, do you have any answers to this question?
Sure. I would say the biggest help, apart from what all we've already discussed, that came to us from LGT, later I'll talk about another donor. So from LGT, the biggest help, apart from everything we've discussed, has been the ICATS fellows. These are people who are selected by LGT Venture Philanthropy, and they are loaned to us or seconded to us for an 11-month period. These guys have really done wonders. Some of them have been excellent. They bring competence, they bring knowledge that is not available with our in-house staff. They bring a fresh outlook, they bring a fresh mind. They are with us for a limited period. That also helps out, but they're really in there to become a permanent part of Operation Asha. So they're able to sort of take an outsider's look, whereas within the time period, they nearly become experts on what we do. So that's like an action by an outsider who knows our program in out. That's a great addition. Our owners have also brought in other competences and hired consultants for us for a short time. And those are the great additions to the funding that the donors provide.
Interesting. From your side, anything that you think was very beneficial, or on the contrary, which didn't help you at all, or which was rather a burden to your organization?
Okay. Thank you very much, Wolfgang. I think I resonate with what Sandeep mentioned about the ICATS, but he did such a great job of giving the reasons why the ICATS have been very beneficial for our organization. So I'll go ahead and just go to my other point. I think what's also very beneficial with having an investors is that you get to ask yourselves the right questions. And sometimes being in an organization, even if you're scaling up, even if you're talking to partners, it's like your own baby. And sometimes you don't see the flaws, you don't get to see it from outside. And the important thing is that you always have a realistic view of where you are and where you could be. And I think that is a very good value add of investors, such as LGT. As for the negative side, I think it's really more about how the investees will react to how investor comes in. So not much negative there, to be quite honest, unless the investee would be very defensive or cannot accept advice or cannot accept an honest assessment of the organization. Sometimes it could be seen as that, but honestly, all feedback should be taken with sincerity and with an acceptance of what you can and cannot do.
Yeah. I think another very practical question, which goes more towards Inderpreet and John, which we received, was around what are the common mistakes that should be avoided, or aspects which should be included in a business plan when seeking growth funding and impact. So I think this a question which we receive very often. What are the things that we as an investor would want to see in a good business plan, and what are the things that we don't want to see in there? Joanne, do you want to try to give a first answer?
Sure thing, Wolfgang. That's a very practical question. I think is I get through business plans and it's like 15, 20 pages, and still don't quite have a clear idea of how they want to do, how the organization wants to do whatever it is they want to do. So, you know, it's a lot. It's like, oh, this is a great concept, blah blah blah, but the nuts and bolts of, you know, the implementation is not necessarily there. Also, I think you know, a lot of times won't be a team in place that can actually execute this stuff. So you know, so much of it really comes down to the plan and the execution, and in many cases, I think you don't see that too much. I think also it can be sometimes difficult to put in a slide how the company makes money, or how the company, in the case of a nonprofit, you know, how the company plans to be financially sustainable. So sometimes we talk around it and you know, hint at it, but it's also not too clear. And as also I see a lot, you know, of course, optimistic financial projections, which then are either not based on actual track record or are so far from what companies actually achieving. And again, that's back to the concrete implementation plan, that it sounds almost a bit like, you know, that you're dreaming something up. So I would say that, yeah, a certain sense of you know, realism, practicality, detail in terms of really how things are going to get done and who's going to be in charge of things getting done. That would be something I'd like to see more in the things that people present. Pete, anything to add?
Wait, 10 seconds in the interest of time. The thing that I often see people forget is the first plan is a means to an end. It's not an end in itself. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. I'm very sorry to cut you short, but this hour has run very fast and we're at the end of the webinar already. I want to say thank you to all of you, to the panelists, to the speakers, to you who have listened. I hope that we will stay in contact. We will continue this dialogue. If you have additional questions, let us know and we will try to answer quite a few of them in the presentation which we will send you. It's a pleasure being with you. I hope you enjoyed it as well, and I'm looking forward to staying in touch. All the best. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.